What's up? I know I never show my face on this channel anymore. I know I barely post anymore. I'm sure this video isn't going to get much attention. I just wanted to come on here, and for anybody watching that it might be even a little bit useful, I wanted to share some advice. This video is not about what you're doing wrong in FL Studio. This video is not about producer tips to improve your beats. These are about the mental side of it. This is about staying consistent, being able to navigate your own goals. As somebody, like, I'm 18 years old, I'm in college currently. There's a lot that I need to know for the career that I'm trying to pursue. I'm sure people don't know this, but I want to do video game soundtracks and soundtracks for short films, mobile games, that kind of thing. So I've been working towards that. But as somebody who, like, you know, my former aspiration before, like, 2023, like early 2023, late 2022, my aspiration for a long time before that was to produce for rappers. So in 2020, I joined a collective on Instagram. This lasted about a year and a half. All kids between like 12 and 18, and a few of them went on to be really successful. So just being able to see the ins and outs of how that kind of thing worked, seeing such a, like, we expanded to about 25 members at our biggest. So it was Prodigy Collective. You can still look it up on YouTube. I think the videos are still up. And I think I have a couple that are still up too on that channel, some tutorials. But just being able to see such a large sample size of what worked and what didn't work, even outside of that collective, I saw so many people connecting. So this is my advice. First of all, I think one of the biggest mistakes people make is they focus on connections before the craft, and they try to rush the process. People see, oh, he's working with someone big. Oh, he's working with this person. And their first thought is, how can I get there? When the obvious thing that a lot of the time you would think they consider, but they really don't, is the fact that they're making great beats. Like, they're making great music. Like, their music is on another level. That people want to work with them for a reason. You don't just get there. You don't just get these connections. The work speaks for itself. And I know that can get frustrating, because a lot of the time it feels like, oh, I feel like I'm just as good as this guy, and he's getting so many more opportunities than me. That's the kind of comparison that you have to kind of eliminate. That, like, you can't compare yourself to other people. That's on to number two. I'm gonna kind of combine number one and number two. Comparison to other people it takes away, like, I know people say comparison is the thief of joy. It's a played out cliche, but you need to think about how true that is. Like, especially because it comes out, that insecurity comes out when you think that you're just as good as everybody else, or you're better than everybody else, or you're better than a lot of people. It does come out. That insecurity does come out when you're talking to other people. It sneaks its way through conversation. You find yourself saying things like, yeah, I don't know how he did it. I feel like I could. You can't, but he did it, and you didn't. But at the end of the day, connections are not about reaching out to the biggest person. It's a ladder. You need to reach out to somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody. And I'm not saying use everybody that you know to get one step higher. You need to grow with somebody until you're at the level of that next person that you want to reach out to. And simultaneously, behind the scenes, you're working on your craft. Because if in 2021 you're as good as you were in 2019, but you have all these connections, what does it matter? Like, these people aren't going to want much to do with you. The most important thing is making sure that you're the best producer you can be. Because let's say you do reach that goal, you're in the studio or you're sending loops back and forth with somebody that you've been trying to work with for a while. Your work is just nowhere near as good as theirs. Nobody wants to be in that position. And then one more piece of advice I have would be to just be a good person. Be somebody that's generally likable. I've heard this so much from people that are successful in the last couple years. If you're not somebody that's likable, if you're not somebody that people would want to work with in general, like, music aside, if you are not the type of person that people would recommend to somebody else to work with, if you're not just fun to collaborate with, that kind of thing, nobody's going to want to collaborate with you. You need to be a good person, man. I've seen so many people get put in good positions and then sabotage themselves just for being a dick, and it's never worth it. Be somebody that is enjoyable to be around, and it goes a long way in the studio and in a group chat. Know your talent, trust your own talent, trust your own ability, and keep going with it. Some advice on how to do that would be utilize all of the free sounds out there. Every free kit, every Reddit kit, every sound effect, all of that, utilize all of it. There's so much free stuff out there. There's no reason anybody should ever be paying for a drum kit. There's so much out there on Reddit. There's so much out there on people's free websites. And there's so much that you can manipulate. Like, there's so many free VSTs. There's so many VSTs that you can crack. And it's very easy to crack VSTs. It takes a Google search. It takes one person to reach out to ask, like, yo, what are your main websites that you use for cracking VSTs? For legal reasons, I'm gonna say that I've never done that. I've just heard of people who have. But it probably works. I don't know. Don't quote me on any of that. It's on video, but still don't quote me on any of that. Oh yeah, there's so much sound out there to be manipulated. You could hear the most basic sound, run it through a couple processors. You hear something you've never heard before. You can put that in a kit. The cycle repeats. Somebody else manipulates your sound. And that's the beauty of music. Everybody's sharing what they have. And there's so many packs of sound effects. Like last week I downloaded a kit full of sound effects from the game Super High, and then I downloaded a sound effect kit full of all the sounds that they used in Modern Warfare Remastered. Like, these kinds of things are so accessible, and if you're not using them, that's on you. Number 4, which I kind of just got into accidentally, is sound design. You need to practice sound design. You need to be able to go into, for example, a VST like Serum and be able to know what most of those buttons do. You need to be able to know if I click this button, this is what's going to happen to my sound. There's no such thing as knowing too much, getting the most knowledge that you possibly can. Tutorials are your friend. I was stubborn to watch tutorials. I wanted to be self-taught, and I mostly am self-taught, but tutorials help so much. Even just skimming through 2 minutes of a 20-minute tutorial, you'll pick up something that you remember that changes your entire method and process for the next few years. The 5th biggest mistake, well, I'm not going in order, but a 5th mistake that young producers make commonly is thinking that they can do it alone. Like I said before, you need connections. You need connections. There's no possible way that, this is an art form that relies on other people. Even in the field that I'm going into, any type of music, you're relying on other people. You're relying on listeners. You're relying on fans of people that you plan to work with. You're relying on those kinds of connections to get to those people that you want to work with. I'll use the biggest example from Prodigy Collective, that group, which is Max Shooter 49. I saw him work so hard. I know this man's come up better than anybody. Like, we're not in contact. It's not like we're not cool. We're not in contact to this day, but I know this man's come up better than anybody. A lot of you watching might have heard of him, produced some big songs recently, and I saw from the start, all he did was work hard. Like, I don't want to say he no-lifed it, but for hours a day, he was working on his craft. He wasn't just making a beat over and over and hoping to get better. He was actively critiquing himself and looking at what worked, what didn't, actively looking at what he could get better at, listening to feedback instead of just taking it as objective criticism in a negative way. And when he worked with people, he would build them up too. Every time he collaborated with somebody, they both benefited off of it. And then eventually, people that were even bigger than him wanted to work with him. He built his way up. That's how you become successful. And it's obviously easier said than done, because first of all, you have to know these people in the first place. You have to be good at what you do. And obviously the hardest part is having to actually put the work in. That time and effort, it's so much. It's ridiculous. It's more than you think. You can't cheat the process, but speeding it up is extremely fucking difficult. I think number 6, a big mistake people make is not experimenting at all. They don't allow themselves to try other genres, and they don't genuinely love music. I had a friend who got into producing after about a year and a half, give or take. He said, yeah, I don't know, this has just gotten really boring. I feel like I can only make this one type of beat. I feel like I can only make 4PF type beats, Rod Wave type beats, that kind of thing, Polo G type beats. And when you don't allow yourself to expand and you really only listen to one type of music, it's not going to do good things for your producing. I know it's generic advice to expand your horizons, but it's generic advice for a reason. It's generic because people say it all the time, and people say it all the time because of how true it is. The more jazz or R&B, especially R&B, you listen to, you will get so much inspiration as a producer. And then, like I said before, you download more kits, you stock up on the most sounds you could possibly get, and you can just build off that. And it's a lot easier to make more genres when you have more sounds at your disposal right there. People are scared to make a bad beat. People are scared to, a lot of the time, open FL or open whatever DAW you use and get to work on something they don't normally do. Like, just fuck around on their keyboard or in the piano roll and just make some kind of weird melody they don't usually make. Try some strange drum kit. If it comes out like shit, it comes out like shit. Nobody cares. You don't have to listen to it. Best case scenario, it comes out something great. And now you can use that, and now you can build off that. That's part of developing your own sound. If you don't make something bad, you can't develop your own sound. Everybody makes bad beats. The only reason some people feel scared of making bad beats is because they never see it. And the reason they never see it is because people don't release their bad beats, because why would you? But it's important to the process. It's all important to the process. This is a huge mistake people make. This is probably the biggest. These next two go hand in hand very much. And these are probably the two biggest mistakes I see people make. Like, this can make or break your entire love for music, is focusing on the numbers too much and not allowing yourself to take breaks. Not allowing yourself to take breaks, it wears you out. Thinking that you need to wake up and get right on your computer and work for hours a day. If you're not motivated, don't be lazy. There are gray areas. There are some times where you need to sit down and make something when you don't feel like it. But if you are really burnt out, it's going to take away from your love of music and your love of the whole game and the whole process if you force yourself every time. At the same time, another thing that can really ruin your love for it is focusing on the numbers too much. If you decide to put your music out there, you have to know that just because you get 30 likes and somebody else gets 300 likes doesn't mean that they are objectively better than you. It doesn't mean that people aren't paying attention to you, or they scroll past and actively decide, no, I don't like this, I'm not going to double click. That kind of dopamine addiction completely takes away any joy that you get out of sharing your music. It leads to fear. It leads to you not wanting to put yourself out there. And in a field like this, you're pretty much forced to put yourself out there. So if you develop that, it can only go downhill. And I want to expand on what I said earlier, being scared to make a bad beat. Being experimental is so important because it helps you out so much more than you would think in the future. For example, like I make primarily hip-hop beats, like when I'm just producing for fun, or when I used to want to make beats for rappers, that kind of thing. But pretty commonly I would experiment with R&B or rock or whatever, that kind of product, or some pop, whatever. And now that I'm making soundtracks, that kind of experience is so useful. I know kind of what to do. I'm not jumping into a whole new field. I have a little bit of, okay, this is something that used to work. It can't hurt. It can never hurt. I mean, how do you think people like Two Hollis blew up? How do you think people like that break ground and blow up nowadays? They combine sounds, and combining sounds comes from experimentation. It can't hurt, can never hurt. Make as much as you can and throw everything at the wall and see what sticks. The exact thing I said about getting as many sounds in your arsenal as possible. Because if you get as many free kits from Reddit, a lot of them are going to turn out to be good. The ones that turn out to be bad, that's an opportunity for sound design. Make them good. I think the last big mistake that people make is thinking that they need all the best equipment to be the best. To be completely honest, I've been using these $30 Sony headphones that I got for Christmas in 2018. Since 2018, people always tell me, oh, you need mixing headphones. You need professional, these $200 headphones. I go to professional studios. Like my college has a full state-of-the-art Dolby Atmos studio. I go plug my computer in, or I go and I plug my flash drive in, play a file on those big ass speakers. Nobody ever comments on the mix. Never gotten a single comment on the mix. Tyler, this is fire. You don't need all of the best equipment. I have one MIDI keyboard. Got it for my birthday in 2019. Yeah, I got it for my 13th birthday. I've had the same MIDI keyboard for years. Only has 2 octaves on it. It's so old they don't make it anymore. It got discontinued. It's a Novation launch key. I don't even remember the number or model. It worked great. It's got a drum pad, the little fucking knobs, and it does what I need it to do. You don't need thousands of dollars worth of equipment as a young producer to make good beats. All that really matters is it sounds good. But if there's one thing I would want anybody to take away from this video, it's to not compare yourself. I think all in all, the most important thing is you do everything that you possibly can with the resources that are given to you. Try to lift up as many people as you can while lifting yourself up with them. And eventually you can be where you want to be. This is very common advice, but the most important part is that you don't give up on yourself. If you really love music, which a lot of people don't really love music, they get into it because they think it seems like a cool, fun thing to do, but they really don't have a genuine passion for music, And that's part of why they refuse to experiment or use sounds that are unconventional, that they don't really hear much. I forgot where I started that sentence, but those kinds of people usually end up quitting pretty relatively soon. So with all of that being said, I hope some of you guys got some good advice out of this video. I've seen a lot, I've done a lot. Not like I've accomplished a lot, but I have done a lot. Learned from my mistakes. I've made almost every single mistake on this list, and it led me on the right path eventually. I learned from those mistakes, and to any producer watching this that has the same goals that I used to kind of have, I know it's very easy to see, oh my God, bro, I'm 17 years old, I'm 18, but from someone else's perspective, I know it's very easy to be like, oh my God, I'm 17 years old, he's 14 years old, how did he just get flown out to Atlanta? And he's working with all of these big producers and artists right now. How did this happen? I've been working so hard for years. That shit doesn't matter. You don't see people's failures because they're so minimized. You don't see people's failures because they don't put them out there. The only person whose failures are maximized to you and put under a microscope are you. You magnify them in your own eyes. You're the only person that sees you fail as much as you do. My final advice: do what you can. You can't control what other people do. Be genuinely happy for the people that succeed before you. You'll meet them at the top if you really want it enough. And if you don't, which I didn't, then you won't. But I found something else that I do want enough and that I am really driving towards. So find your niche. Find your niche. I know this is a long outro, but I'm kind of just rambling, giving any last words that I can. There's something small. You think LaserDim's producers would have found success 10 years ago? Probably not. But the niche is there for a reason. I probably would have never felt this confident in myself and my abilities if I never got into soundtrack producing and soundtrack composition and that kind of thing. I was ready to give up music a couple years ago. And to expand on what I said earlier, because I kind of meant to say that a little bit more, a lot of people don't allow themselves to take breaks or hiatuses. You could be going for a month. There was a point where I made like 3 beats in 6 months. I came back stronger, I came back better. Oh yeah, experimentation also helps you get over beat block, which can be a huge confidence killer. With all of that being said, I hope this helped. If any of my words helped anybody, let me know. And recording this for 20 minutes was worth it.